Measuring student intercultural learning using qualitative data can be accomplished by coding words, phrases, and sentences produced in student artifacts, including but not limited to varied-length texts, essays, videos, images, etc. The process of coding involves identifying portions of student production that demonstrate attributes of a given topic. These codes are cataloged as themes, topics, or categories, and can be identified in one of two ways: either as emerging descriptive themes or as prescriptive, predetermined, or anticipated themes. The emergent approach sets out to discover what the student has produced rather than searching for a specific item. A coder identifies items they feel demonstrate a meaningful component of learning, first by highlighting the item and then coding it. Each item is identified using a descriptive term and, when possible, it is connected to other previous codes. As more and more items are coded and are organized into clusters or groups, patterns and themes begin to emerge. These can be then analyzed by frequency, intensity, variation, and when viewed along with other artifacts, by comparison. The emergent themes can then be compared to existing theoretical frameworks to be further analyzed through a particular lens. The prescriptive approach begins with the theoretical framework, which is used to aid the coder in seeking out specific items that align with prescribed characteristics and elements defined by the framework. Student production can thus be coded using these predetermined themes and topics. The process of analysis is the same as above, however, predetermined by the lens of the selected framework. There are advantages and disadvantages to both approaches, and as is often the case in research, a mix of the two methods is often preferable. This allows the analysis of data to draw from the strengths of each approach while reducing its limitations. Beginning with the theoretical model provides a structured framework that allows for quicker and more decisive coding. Data analysis based upon grounded theory also supports stronger and more credible argumentation. Additionally, in research that involves large data sets and thus numerous coders or raters, inter-rater reliability becomes an important factor to address. Prescriptive coding provides more reliable agreement of definitions and meanings of the codes being used, and therefore greater agreement on how those codes are applied to student production. Multiple researchers get the same results, or simply put, they are coding in the same way. However, if they also allow for opportunities to code emergent items that may be outliers or unexpected themes, they can provide a more robust analysis that reflects a more inclusive picture of the student's production. Emergent themes can contribute to a broader understanding of student production that otherwise could not be planned for using the theoretical framework. As I mentioned, making sure multiple raters or coders of data are producing the same results in the process of coding is very important in regard to validity of research. Simply put, inter-rater reliability describes the degree to which two or more raters consistently agree with each other when observing the same data. For this reason, a valid approach to establishing inter-rater reliability is through training, practice, and testing. When using the prescriptive coding approach, raters use an agreed-upon assessment or coding tool, such as a rubric. First, the raters are trained in the use of the tool with baseline explanations and examples. Then, raters practice coding a sample text individually using the tool. This is followed by collaborative comparisons of results, during which the raters share their results and explain the rationale for the coding they produced. Through this debriefing of the coding practice, raters negotiate a shared understanding of proper application of the tool to numerous contextual examples. Through repeated iterations of this practice, debriefing, and negotiation process, agreement is increased and results become more consistent among the raters. If you are new to coding qualitative data, your first question may be, how is coding done? While it may be clear that this involves assigning a specific term to an item in an artifact, the practice may be less clear. To address this question of how, let's consider the earliest methods used, a low-tech solution. Beginning with a hard copy of a student's essay, a rater would read through the text, looking for words, phrases, or sentences that demonstrate a particular item of interest. For example, they may be looking for items that demonstrate a student's willingness to initiate engagement with a person who is different from them. This would be intercultural openness. One such item might be a comment about asking a street vendor about the food or product they are making. While this demonstrates intercultural curiosity, asking a question, if the situation involves voluntary initiation on the part of the student, it may also qualify as demonstrating openness. The low-tech method for coding this item would be to simply underline the portion of text that demonstrates this attitude and noting it in the margins with the word openness. Additionally, the rater should attempt to identify the level of openness. Then note that as well by perhaps adding a number after openness in the margins. This process can be enhanced through the use of color coding systems using colored pens, pencils, highlighting markers. This would then be accompanied by a legend explaining the specific meaning of each color. This process translates well to a digital application using word processing programs like Microsoft Word. Text can be highlighted with different colors, and with the review function, margin notes can be added to specific items within the text. The next level, or high-tech approach, would be to make use of specific software created for coding artifacts. A particularly popular and highly useful example of such software is NVivo. While the low-tech approach is sufficient and most importantly simplest and free method, if large amounts of data are to be coded, a software program like NVivo can be extremely helpful in keeping the process well organized and adaptable to the needs of the research. There are, of course, additional considerations when using such software, most notably the learning curve for new software as well as cost. However, employers may provide both technical support for such software and purchase licenses for the software. In the coding examples that follow, we will be looking at this process of coding qualitative data using the prescriptive approach, specifically by coding student artifacts using the AAC&U Intercultural Knowledge and Competence Value Rubric. This process can, of course, be carried out using any theoretical model, framework, or more specifically, rubric. Take a look at the AAC&U Intercultural Knowledge and Competence Value Rubric. Note that the levels are organized right to left rather than left to right, so that the highest level appears right next to the name of the competency. Familiarize yourself first with the capstone level 4 of each competency. The capstone level provides the most detail about the specific definition of the competency, including elements that the competencies are comprised of. For example, worldview includes history, politics, values, communication styles, economy, beliefs, and practices. Once familiar with the capstone level, move on to reviewing each level for each competence, noting what distinguishes one level from the next. As with most rubrics, the AAC&U Intercultural Knowledge and Competence Value Rubric includes some language that can be ambiguous or open to interpretation. For example, how do we determine the difference between a student's ability to show awareness of, identify, recognize, or articulate insights into a specific piece of content? Or how do we distinguish between asking simple or surface questions versus deeper or complex questions? How are these qualities manifested through texts? For this reason, it is a good idea to familiarize yourself with both supporting documentation from the AAC&U as well as published research in which the rubric has been used to code data. That being said, there is no substitute for the experience of using the rubric to code data through repeated practice. The benefit and value of reflecting upon this understanding with peers, as through the process of establishing inter-rater reliability, cannot be overstated. While the majority of artifacts referred to in this module are text-based essays and long texts, there are a variety of artifact types that students may produce, all of which are available for coding in their own way. Blogs, vlogs, both long and short-form videos, PowerPoint presentations, infographics, etc., are all acceptable forms of student artifacts that can be coded and analyzed. Software programs, like NVivo, take this variety into account and make coding of audio and visual media possible. Both audio and video can be coded by identifying specific timestamps in file tracks. Images can be coded by selecting or drawing shapes, like boxes or circles, around segments of the image. The next step in this module would be to view the provided samples of coded text, and then begin practicing on your own, coding other student artifacts using the rubric. Again, it is highly recommended that you practice this skill in collaboration with other raters to benefit from the iterative process of developing more clearly defined and agreed upon approaches to applying the framework to the analysis of your data.